Folks, welcome into SportsBookReview.com's Roundtable series videos. Today, we're going to be talking some NFL, specifically the NFL draft, and the focus on the top five. Let me bring in my roundtable for three, Greg Farrar and Jeff Nadu. Greg, I'm going to start with you first. The Bengals, number one overall. Their guy is Joe Burrow. I don't think they make any moves here, get a package deal at number one. They got to take this guy right here, Greg.
Yep, they're going to take the local kid coming off the national championship. He's got all the intangibles, great, accurate quarterback to jump in and maybe succeed right away in that system. The Bengals have had problems with ownership and as an organization in the past. I've heard interviews with Carson Palmer kind of ruminating on the idea maybe if he went to a different franchise, his career would have been different, would have been more successful, and he would have had more of a legacy. Now, will Joe Burrow be able to avoid that fate? Can the Bengals maybe learn from some of the mistakes they made when they had a franchise-style quarterback there in the past? I'd love to see it. I hope so. I think this is a great kid and coming out, and I see no reason why the Cincinnati Bengals would not take Joe Burrow with the number one pick.
Jeff, as we bring you in here, talking about the Bengals, you're looking at a quarterback here that lit the SEC up with some numbers we've never seen before. Heisman Trophy winner, national championship. He's got the moxie. Didn't succeed in his home state, Ohio State. Had to find that elsewhere in LSU, but certainly a great season. The clear-cut number one overall pick. But again, you're talking about a guy that's going to be going to a franchise in need of a lot of help. And can he be that franchise savior? But back to the original question, he's got to go number one, right, Jeff?
Yeah, he's going to go number one. I mean, it's a very simple pick here. I think it's already been decided. I don't know how much Joe Burrow wants to go to Cincinnati, but he's going to go. Look, at the end of the day, Donnie, there are very few physical limitations Joe Burrow has. He had a great season last year. My only concern, because, again, I always look to things that maybe won't come true. I think we have to stop with the constant positive stuff. Sometimes there are negatives. The one you worry about, Donnie, is – was Joe Burrow just a one-year kind of guy where why didn't he matriculate earlier? Why did it take so long? It does remind you a little bit of Trubisky with his kind of, similar ascent, but he's a much better player. I think he has a different mindset. And that's the great thing about Burrow. I at no point last year once said, wow, he seems, divish or anything like that. He seems like a good kid that loves football, that works hard. He's a gym rat. He's going to do whatever he can to become a better player. And I think his inability to maybe throw the football downfield, I think you can mask it by some other intangibles that he does have, his ability to move around, his mobility, that kind of thing. So for me, yeah, I think it's a knockout pick. You can't teach some of the things Joe Burrow has. He's just a good kid that works hard. He's exactly what you want in a quarterback, Donnie.
Yeah, it should be something that they can build on and taking that guy number one overall. Let's get to the number two pick because we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. The Washington Redskins will be on the clock. And I equate this here, Greg, to baseball terms. It's a 3-0 count. You got the green light because if you're going to take Chase Young number two overall, he's going to be a really good player in my estimation. But do you take that pitch and say, you know what? We're not going to talk trade out to your possibilities, but do you say, you know what? I need my quarterback. I'm a new head coach in Ron Rivera. I'm not happy with Dwayne Haskins. I've already made a move to get a backup quarterback from a similar system that I just had. Do I reach outside the box and go after the quarterback? Or do I sit there green lighted here, Greg, on that 3-0 count and say, give me my man Chase Young here?
Yeah, I think it's a tough situation for the Redskins. Lots of reports during the season and in the offseason that the Redskins were not happy with his work ethic and his teammates were not happy with his demeanor and the way he carried himself with the locker room. We remember the video of him yelling at his offensive line to try and get some protection, and they didn't seem to be listening at all. Now, was that just a snapshot, and is it maybe be taken out of context? Maybe, maybe not, but it is something to think about here. It'd be very tough for the GM to give up after 1 year. We say how hard it is for Pace to move on from Trubisky, even though it seems like he flubbed that pick, and they're going into year 5 with that. Will the GM be able to say, look, I made a mistake, this isn't my guy, and move on and pick another quarterback? I think there will be some consideration within the Redskins organization to do that, but at the end of the day, I think they will beef up the defensive line, go for the surefire pick in Chase Young. We look at the way that Nick Bosa was able to revitalize that San Francisco defensive line and the impact that an edge rusher that dominates the game can make. I think Washington's going to look to Bosa, look at his success, try and emulate that, and I think that they'll stick with Haskins for at least one more year and make Chase Young the number 2 pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, Jeff, usually we look at some of these things and say, wait a second, you just drafted a quarterback last year. High. How are you going to take another quarterback? Well, Arizona did it. So there is a little bit of a metric to be used for that, the same way that we would take a look, as Greg says, Bosa, the success that he has. And oh, yeah, those Ohio State kids rushing the passer, they seem to be pretty good in the NFL. Jeff, I don't think being a defensive-minded head coach coming in, you used a lot of draft capital last year, obviously, with the high draft pick and taking your quarterback. Don't you just, as a new head coach, say, just give me the safe pick. Give me the guy I know that I can plug and play next year and he can make a difference. Or do you say, well, I'm new here. I'm going to swing outside the box. Give me another quarterback and see if we can, turn on something here in the next couple of years. What do you say here?
Yeah, I think all three of us would agree. They're kind of just delaying the inevitable. I think we all know a player either has it or they don't. I didn't really ever get the feeling that Dwayne Haskins had it last year, but again, it was limited. I think you got to give him another year, and I think they're going to do that. They're going to take Chase Young, and the great thing about these first three picks, Donnie, is I think you have the best physical limit as far as the physical limitations. I think you have the three best players here. There are very few things that Chase Young needs to work on. I think he needs to get a little stronger, but you have some really good things in place already on that defense. A guy like Jerome Payne, Donnie, who can maybe for Chase Young's inability maybe against the run, they kind of work perfectly. You have Jack Del Rio there as your defensive coordinator now. All of a sudden, that's a pretty damn good defense, particularly up front. I think they addressed the cornerback at some point as well in the draft. I really like where the defense is headed. Quarterback could make sense, but I don't think it makes sense until next year. You've got to go out and get your pass rusher. They don't necessarily have that Ryan Kerrigan type of player anymore. So yeah, I think Chase Young is a knockout pick. A lot of comparisons to Julius Peppers. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Chase Young's the pick here.
If we take a look at that pick number 3 coming into the Lions, still with the quarterback, a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, and a really good quarterback in Matthew Stafford in his early 30s. So you figure they would go out defensive-minded head coach. You got another plug-and-play type guy here. When we talk about Joe Burrow going number 1, we talk about Chase Young going number 2. Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State, another guy losing Darius Slay from the Detroit Lions over to the Philadelphia Eagles. You have that glaring need, and corners are at a premium in the NFL. You have a chance to select one. I don't think they pass it up here. How about you, Greg?
Yeah, I think they're going to go Jeff Okudah. The only way they don't is I think they trade out. I think they're going to stick with Stafford. The rumors of a quarterback, I think, are complete smokescreens. Don't expect that at all. So I think unless they trade the pick, the Lions will select Jeff Okudah, who's a fantastic cornerback prospect. We've seen cornerbacks struggle in their rookie years before. Patrick Peterson is one I can think of that was getting burned constantly, turned out to be an all-pro. Great player. But if any player can come in and make an impact right away, it's a player with the skills of Jeffrey Okudah. And I see no reason why the Detroit Lions won't select him with the number 3 pick.
Yeah, Jeff, when we talk about that number 2 pick here with the Redskins, defensive-minded head coach going with the defensive guy, you see it number 3 here, and there's a really good shot that Matthew Patricia, defensive-minded head coach, gets his stud cornerback right here at number 3.
Yeah, I mean, not only is this the best pick here, but it makes a ton of sense. I think Jeffrey Okudah is my favorite player in this draft. I don't see any limitations that he has. He can play every coverage. Donnie, the great thing and what you want in a cornerback, and I know you'll agree with this, you've got to be a confident corner. You've got to be able to play man. You're able to match up with anyone. And I think Jeffrey Okudah has that. He can tackle. He's willing to tackle. He's physical. The only thing you don't like about Okudah is he didn't really have a great combine, but I think that could only be just a bad day. Donnie, it's fascinating to think about his 4.48 that he ran. Many believe he could run much better. So I think at the end of the day, that's his only concern, but I'm willing to throw that out. He's the best corner I've seen in a pretty long time. I think he makes a ton of sense for them. Obviously, moving on from Darius Slay, he's cheaper, and he could turn into becoming a better player. I think he's going to bring us back to one of those shutdown corner type days. We don't have many of those anymore. Okudah could be the next one.
No, I agree with you guys. I mean, those top 3 picks, again, plug and play seems to be simple picks here that you can make and have those high impact guys. But let's take a look at number 4. The Giants come in, seemingly having their quarterback of the future. They hope with Daniel Jones. Joe Judge comes in here, and he's going to make an impact right away off the bat with what his first selection will be. But the board is open here, Greg. You could beef up the D-line. You can add to your offensive line. You could pick one of these speedsters at wide receiver. Where do you think they go here, Greg, with this number 4 pick here for the Giants?
I think the Giants will go offensive line. It's just a question of who. We look at Tristan Wirfs, who probably has the best tape. I think that's the most likely spot. But Mekhi Becton had such a great combine. It's going to be very hard for any general manager who's thinking offensive line to make a pick and pass up Becton, because what a great player, what a great combine performance, what athleticism. It's going to be really tough. But when we look at the Giants, right, they have Daniel Jones, shows potential. There's no reason to move on from him yet. And then we have Saquon Barkley, their first-round draft pick from the year before. And boy, does this guy need an offensive line. How many times did I see this guy get hammered behind the offensive line, behind the line of scrimmage last year, having to make something out of nothing? And really, he's not very good at pass protection either. So they're going to need more help on the offensive line. That will help Saquon Barkley look better, and that will also help Daniel Jones look better. I think they go offensive line. Not sure who. If I were to guess, I still think that Tristan Wirfs had the best tape. So I think they'll go Tristan Wirfs. But if they went another direction, I would not be surprised at all. Great talent for offensive line. Great spot for the New York Giants to be in.
Jeff, I would be surprised if the Giants reached out. And again, the same similar situation that we're talking about with the Washington Redskins, going for quarterback and spending a lot of draft capital when you already have your quarterback who you hope is going to be your quarterback of the future, Saquon Barkley, a dominating running back. You need somebody to block. You need somebody to open up those holes. But if you're Joe Judge in this new regime, are you going offensive line to bolster it? You're saying, you know what? There might be some defensive help we can get in this spot.
You know, Donnie, I got to be honest. If I were the Giants, which I'm not, it would obviously be a tackle here. But I got to tell you, I wouldn't totally rule out a receiver. They have very little at that position. I'm going to go out and say that. I don't know if they have a talent in this draft that's at that level to take them fourth, but they need to address that. They need better receivers here at some point. But yeah, the tackle is the way to go. With Joe Judge kind of coming from college, being a Mississippi State, Alabama, SEC kind of guy, I think Jedrick Wills is probably the pick. I'm not necessarily loving Wills though over Becton or Wirfs. Wills is a smaller kind of guy. You want your offensive tackles to be big, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Spread mentioned Becton's combine. I mean, look, Donnie, the guy's 6'7", 365. He ran a 5.40, and that's unbelievable. Wirfs is also a fascinating player. He was a wrestler in high school. I've heard comments that he could squat a bus, Donnie, which is, again, whenever you have a tackle, anyone that could squat a bus, you're interested. I don't know if he can literally do that, but I'm sure he can't. But again, still fascinating. They already have a Will Hernandez there, Donnie. They have a Kevin Zeitler. I think both those guys are solid. You've got to stop dancing around the fact that you are just going to go through life with an old Nate Solder at left tackle. They've got to address this position. We saw Daniel Jones. Most of the turnovers last year were just an ineffectiveness of his offensive line. You already have a guy there in Saquon Barkley. You have a guy in Jason Garrett, who I think is going to be a much better coordinator than he was the coach. I think the future is bright in New York. I think the future is bright not only in New York, but in Washington. They have some things developing. I think it's Becton or Wirfs here. That's where I would go.
If we take a look at that number 5 spot here held by the Dolphins, Greg, it seems inevitable here. If we don't get any crazy changes in these top 4 picks that we've just seen, that quarterback should be available for them to go ahead and get. You waited all this time. You were tanking. Now you might even end up with Tua Tagovailoa, but there are also some other quarterback options here. I can't see the Miami Dolphins foregoing that and picking a position player outside of quarterback. Sooner or later, you have to move on from Fitzpatrick under center. I think this is the time they do it. Do they go quarterback here, Greg, in your estimation, or do they just kick the can down the street and say, let's just go best available player who we have on our board at this time?
Yeah, I think they're going quarterback. It's just a question of who, right? And you made a nice little comment there about tanking for Tua, right? We all thought that they were trying to get the number 1 pick to get Tua. Now it looks like they might have a possibility to get him with the number 5 pick. The questions about Tua, though, are his health. They're not his talent. The guy throws the best deep ball of any quarterback in the draft, any quarterback I think maybe coming out in the last 3 years. And not only that, he's accurate underneath. So this guy is the full package, moves well in the pocket, great arm strength, but it comes down to that hip. How will it recover? Will he be able to play? Can a team like the Miami Dolphins afford to miss on a top 5 pick at this point in their rebuild? I don't know if they can, so it's going to be very tough. We heard rumors today now that Tua did not pass physicals. We have to take those with a grain of salt. Are teams interested in Tua and putting that out there in hopes that he drops, or did this really happen? So this is all a game of speculation, all a smokescreen, but I think it comes down to either Tua or Herbert out of Oregon. I think Herbert's a great prospect as well. big NFL type body, made all the throws he needed to at Oregon, but it's tough to take a Pac-12 quarterback as they've not translated to success in the NFL recently. This is a really tough one to pick. I definitely think the Miami Dolphins are going quarterback. If who, I don't know. I think they'll go ahead and take the risk on Tua because I think he's that good and too much to pass up. But boy, if he can't stay healthy, they're really going to regret missing a top 5 pick this year.
Jeff, I think the Dolphins right here in this 5 spot, if Tua is available, they have to take him here, especially with the changing in the guard in the AFC East. When you take a look at a lot of these young quarterbacks trying to take that next step and overcome the New England Patriots, I think this is a great starting point to let the kid get his feet wet, learn from a professional, a veteran in Fitzpatrick, and also look towards the future saying, now we got our quarterback and we have a ton more draft capital to try to build this thing in the right momentum and the right way forward. Jeff, Tua to the Dolphins makes too much sense. Or if Tua's not available, what are some other options out here they can go after?
Yeah, this has Donnie changed for me in about the last 24 hours. I think the Dolphins are going to pass on Tua Tagovailoa. I really do, and it wouldn't surprise me if, again, I mean, the Chargers are obviously picked next, and they'll probably take him. But I just worry about his physical, like some of his injury limitations. Donnie continues to remind you a lot of some of the problems Carson Wentz has established in the NFL, where he just can't seem to stay healthy certain years. And with the hip injury, with the lower leg injuries, there's just so much to worry about with Tua Tagovailoa. Spread mentions some of the physicals that he took and things like that. I think Herbert's just a bet. I don't know if he's a better player, but I think he's a safer pick. The problem I have with Herbert is he's just not a real commanding leader. I saw in certain games he really struggled. 2 years ago in the one of the bowl games, he was horrific against Tennessee. He just couldn't move the football. I really worry. But I think from a physical standpoint, there's a lot of pro-ready frame to him. He's got the ability to read receivers. He's got the ability to do really a lot of things. He can throw the football downfield. He doesn't really have those big-time crazy wild plays, but I just worry about Tua, and I like the kid a lot. I think he could be the next big thing in the NFL, but Donnie, if you can't play because you're injured, it doesn't matter how talented you are. And I think Miami, I like the way their team's going. They have 3 picks in the first round. They're going to have the ability to address things. And I made a crazy comment, Donnie, on Jay's show a couple of days ago. I thought the Miami Dolphins would win the AFC East this year. I'm making a big bold proclamation here. They're going to get their quarterback. I like what they're doing defensively. I think they really addressed this offense in the first round. They got 3 picks. I think they start with a quarterback, and I'm going to go Herbert here.
Bold proclamations right here on SportsbookReview.com's Roundtable videos. Today, we tackled the top 5 in the NFL draft. We're only 2 weeks out from the NFL draft. We're going to have a lot of fun going over a multitude of things and having some fun, and also having an esteemed panel. I do want to thank Greg Farrar and Jeff Nadeau for joining me today. Donnie Seymour on the show, SportsbookReview.com. We got you covered for the NFL draft. Take a look out for the next round of SportsbookReview.com's Roundtable videos.